What's going on, guys? It's Fight Season MMA, and today I want to make a video talking about Jorge Masvidal. Mr. Gamebred, the 305 man himself, is back inside the UFC. He just announced after his fight with Nate Diaz that he is returning inside the UFC probably sometime in the later part of the year, and he named UFC 310 as a date that he wanted to be in to return. Mr. Masvidal, or Gamebred, is one of the most fun fighters of all time inside the UFC. He won the BMF title against Nate Diaz in the UFC Octagon. He's fought the likes of Kamaru Usman twice. He's fought Colby Covington. He's fought a lot of different individuals inside the UFC, but he is one of the most fun individuals. His last fight was against Gilbert Burns, and he says that he wants to return at UFC 310 against one former champion, Leon Rocky Edwards. Before we jump right into the video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. That is the best way to help support the channel, and we are on the road to 1,000 subscribers, so if you guys could please drop a subscription down below. If you guys enjoy daily UFC content, please do that, and if you guys want to turn on the post notifications button just so you guys are always updated with the most recent UFC content, that would be absolutely amazing. But without further ado, let's jump right into the video of Jorge Masvidal's return to inside the UFC and possibly a fight going down with Leon Edwards. Okay, so Jorge Masvidal said that his team, his management, is in talks with the UFC to renegotiate a contract to return to the UFC Octagon back possibly at the end part of this year or the part next year. Jorge Masvidal took some time off. He fought Colby Covington at UFC 272 as the main event there, and then he co-headlined a card at UFC 287 in Miami, and that was the co-headliner to Adesanya versus Pereira 2 inside the UFC. But truly, Jorge Masvidal is looking to come back inside the UFC, which is one of the best things for the welterweight division right now. The welterweight division doesn't really have a star inside the organization currently. I know we got Kamaru Usman, but he's older. Leon Edwards is incredibly overrated. Bilal Muhammad doesn't get the star power that he likes. There's Garry, who everyone thinks he's privileged. We got Brady, who's one of my favorite fighters, but not loved by the masses. Gilbert Burns is not a massive name, but a lot of individuals like him, but he's just getting older. Jorge Masvidal is a name that every single person knows for the crazy knockouts, the street fights, everything like that. Jorge Masvidal is one of the best things that could have happened for the welterweight division to return and amp back up. Jorge Masvidal hasn't really fought that recently. He's only fought 3 times since UFC 261. He fought in the main event of 261, he fought at 272, and then he fought at 287, and then now it's UFC 306 coming up next weekend. So truly, I think that Jorge Masvidal is going to be a little bit rusty coming back inside the octagon. Now, we had a boxing match with Nate Diaz, which Nate Diaz ultimately won, but boxing is a really hard sport to really, it's hard to know what a judge wants compared to MMA. It's a little bit easier to understand what the criteria is for winning a fight. So Jorge Masvidal being back in, like I said, is a great thing for the welterweight division, and he named Leon Edwards as an opponent that he wants to face upon his return. I think Leon Edwards versus Jorge Masvidal would be an actually really fun fight inside the UFC organization. I think it would be a great striking match. I think if Jorge could make it ugly, you might not believe this, but I do think he could actually win that fight. Leon Edwards, kind of just being that sneaky sniper that he is, really is going to have a hard time dealing with someone like Jorge Masvidal if he makes it ugly. That's if he makes a fight a barn burner. If he makes it and he makes it ugly. If this is just a pad hitting fight, Leon Edwards is going to smoke him 100 times out of 100. And that's how anyone can beat Leon Edwards. If they can go in there and make that fight ugly, they give themselves a chance to win and propel themselves into a great position inside that welterweight division. Really, that would be the best name that I have upon the top of my head of Jorge Masvidal to face, would be someone like Leon Edwards. You go down a couple other people that he could fight. He could fight Jeff Neal if you want someone lower. He could fight MVP, which would be a really lower fight, but would be an amazing fight to be put on in that division. If you want to give him someone like Jack Della Maddalena, who doesn't have a fight, but I think Maddalena should fight up. I think that Jorge Masvidal, first off, should possibly fight Leon Edwards because of the history there and Jorge Masvidal's name. Now, does he deserve the fight off criteria and all that different type of stuff? No, he does not. But Jorge and Leon have a history, and I do think that would be a great thing for the UFC to capitalize on. So I do think that 100% would be something true. And I think that if that fight doesn't come to fruition, I think you do the Michael Venom Page fight. I think that would be an incredible fight to be had, and to slot more Jorge Masvidal back into that welterweight top 15, but just at the lower end. So I think Jorge Masvidal is going to be a major contributor to the UFC organization once again once he returns, and I truly think he's one of the most fun fighters inside the UFC. If we look at his highlights against Ben Askren and all these different type of things, he has the fastest knockout in UFC history at 5 seconds long with that flying knee, one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. But truly, if Jorge Masvidal can bring that type of star power back to the welterweight division, he can be that dude once again. It's going to be something that truly is going to attract more viewers to the UFC, because I know that there's a lot of individuals saying the UFC is in its worst state currently that it's ever been. Now, I don't agree with that, but there's definitely some aspects that would, that are true about that. But bringing back a name like Gamebred Masvidal back into the UFC would be something that would 100% advocate and 100% raise the ceiling for the UFC to be amazing again, and just allow for the UFC to have some amazing fights going on in that welterweight division. Yes, they might not be for titles, but we all love an amazing scrap. Look at the BMF title at UFC 291. That was an amazing fight. It might have not been for a title, and you know what? That's okay sometimes. We don't need always big fights to be for the title, and that's what Jorge Masvidal does. He might not be a championship challenger anytime soon, but he will give you a barn burner fight anytime you step in there with him. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA, and please let me know what you think down below in the comment section about Jorge Masvidal possibly returning to the UFC. I think Jorge Masvidal, like I said, is going to be a massive asset back in the UFC organization. Everyone loves this man considering his knockouts, especially if you get him fighting in the right places. That pop in Miami was absolutely crazy when he fought at UFC 287 as the king of Miami down there in South Florida. But Jorge Masvidal is loved by all the masses in the UFC organization, and if we get him in there with the correct fight, possibly Leon Edwards, imagine that fight headlining a fight night in the UK early next year. That would be an incredible thing to be had. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA, and please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you guys want to help support the channel. Since we're on the road to 1,000 subscribers, it would mean so very much if you guys could do so. And while you're down there, please turn on the post notifications just so you guys can stay updated with the most recent UFC content. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA, and I will catch you guys very soon with more UFC content and news.